These were all the fishermen, right?
Fishing boats.
They stopped being necessary because factory ships appeared.
Here it is. You might also hear it called Stalin's red crab. The first in the world.
It was the Icebreaker that spent the longest time without docking at a port, 390 days.
From my childhood, I remember being on the dock fishing with the boys.
They say that the conditions for human life in the Arctic are some of the most difficult you can find on the planet. However, here in Murmansk, civilization is making its way. Join me in a new video to see what life is like in what's known as the capital of the Arctic, the largest city in the entire Arctic Circle. Let's go. Life above the Arctic Circle requires constant adaptation to extreme weather, marked by long freezing winters where sunlight disappears for several weeks. The instability of permafrost represents a critical challenge for architecture and infrastructure, while geographic isolation forces populations to rely almost exclusively on trains or planes during the harshest months. In addition, the intense cold, which often reaches -50 or -60 degrees Celsius, not only increases the cost of basic supplies due to transportation expenses, but also drastically accelerates the wear and tear of materials and systems. In this hostile environment, Murmansk stands as the largest metropolis in the Arctic, home to about 300,000 inhabitants. Despite being a young city with barely a century of history, it has the vitality of major cities, based on its strategic port and a powerful fishing and mining industry. The city is on the northern part of the Kola Peninsula, ancestral land of the Sami people. For millennia, the Sami organized themselves into sit, communities that collectively managed the pastures and hunting areas, basing their subsistence on a perfect symbiosis with reindeer and fishing. Adding to this cultural mosaic today is the presence of the Komi people, whose members settled in the region and are commonly seen nowadays managing reindeer farms. On this occasion, the journey through Murmansk begins with a brief trip to the small fishing village of Teriberka, located to the north on the coast of the Kola Peninsula. Starting from the 12th century, Russian settlers from the Novgorod region and the shores of the White Sea, known as Pomors, began a process of expansion throughout the area. Focused on fishing and hunting, they exploited the resources in an organized way for commercial purposes. That's how Teriberka emerged in the 16th century, especially dedicated to the capture and processing of cod. Although it reached its industrial peak during Soviet times, today tourism has taken over. Travelers often stop on its roads to take photos in front of icy landscapes resembling science fiction movie settings. There, the feeling of being on another planet is only broken by occasional encounters with local wildlife or small settlements that remind us we still haven't left Earth. Good morning from Teriberka. After a little more than 2 hours of travel from Murmansk, I'm here now, in the village of Teriberka, a small tourist village on the shores of the Barents Sea. Much more touristy than I could have imagined. It's all because a famous Russian movie, Leviathan, was filmed here. I'm sure many of you know it. And nowadays, even though only about 800 people live here, I assure you that the population can double every day during the winter season with tourists. And I'm not exaggerating. I didn't expect it, but I'm not exaggerating. The first thing I came across that caught my attention, apart from this beautiful landscape of course, is the exercise area. The outdoor gym of Teriberka. Take a look. Gym equipment right in the middle of the street, in the middle of the snow. And hey, they don't look bad. You've got everything you need for a full body workout. Let's see how they work. Wow. Yeah, this is heavy. Are you a local?
Yes.
I'm Spanish.
Don't tell me. And what brought you here?
I'm married to a Russian woman.
That's another matter.
Yes, haha. Can you tell me what life is like around here? Good. Have you been living here for many years?
65 years.
65 years already?
Yes.
Wow. And how did this change? Because I see there are a lot of tourists, right?
We put up with it and went on with our lives.
Ha ha ha, I understand.
Look at all the ice there is. I think it's -13 degrees Celsius right now.
Yes.
Approximately.
But it's not bad, right?
This is nothing. It's no big deal. Besides, there's no wind.
There's no wind. That's the most important thing.
If it was minus 10 degrees and windy, you'd feel like you'd be walking around with a frozen beard.
Yeah.
I shaved before New Year's and now I feel fresh. Do you see that fog? The sea is over there.
Yes, the sea is over there. That's where I'm from.
When the storm comes, it gets really cold.
And what do people do for a living around here?
I'm retired.
Retired, but he used to be a builder.
How should I put it? They eat whatever they find.
But do they fish for a living?
No, you can fish, but they don't allow it.
Нет, рыба будет ловиться, но не выпускает.
The border guard has closed access. Fishing is only allowed starting in May. I caught one as tall as me. Yeah, you catch it and keep it for yourself.
Is the pension here good?
I get 25,000 rubles a month, which is enough for me.
I didn't expect there to be so many tourists around here.
And that's during the New Year's holidays. If you come in the summer, that's how crowded the streets are.
Indians? Chinese?
There's all kinds of people. They come from St. Petersburg, from Moscow, from all over the country.
Are they coming for the movie?
No, let me tell you, someone spread the word that whales come here. Right now there aren't any, but they do come. Someone spread the word that there are whales, and people come like flies to the, you know?
Yes, I know what it is. Yes, I understand. Very well. Yes. By the way, one thing I hadn't mentioned is that this is as bright as it gets that you have here during the day. The moon is still present. It's 12:30 in the afternoon. It only really got light a couple of hours ago. And now, in just a couple of hours, the sun will set again. I mean, the day, right now we're in the middle of the polar night, it's about 40 days more or less, during which the sun barely rises and the day lasts, well, just 4 or 5 hours. Imagine these conditions. They went to that village, you can walk through it in 5 minutes, literally, because I've already walked through it in 5 or 10 minutes. People here hardly have anything else to do during the winter months, except hit the bottle. This is the clearest it gets. From now on, it just keeps getting darker. A quick stop to warm up and get something to eat. Sorry for wearing the hat, but it's really cold. Well, I ordered myself a little coffee and a soul-filled pastry. From Flatfish, right? Let's see how your health is doing. It really has a strong flavor. But hey, it's not bad. It gives you energy. Here, the diet in these areas, as you can imagine, it's purely based on fish. There are thousands of lakes. Besides the sea, it's an area that's full of rivers, small lakes, and ponds. And it's a tradition to fish and store it in warehouses, to dry it or keep it frozen and have it for the whole year. Why did they move from the old Teriberka to the new Teriberka?
Because the original settlement was the old Teriberka. It's from the 16th century. In the 20th century, in 1930, the new Teriberka was founded. They helped repair ships, and the fish factories were in the new Teriberka. Here they made fish products since it was impossible in the old Teriberka. The shore is sandy, so large ships couldn't dock. Here in the new one, the shore and the bottom are made of stone with no sand.
Take a look at something else you can find in Teriberka. It's the wooden ship cemetery. They're stranded here. Well, once a long time ago they were stranded, and now they're overturned, beaten by storms and the harsh subarctic weather. And this is a small bay where you can still see some fishing boats, but they're more modern, of course. The wooden ones have already been abandoned, rotting on the shore.
At the beginning of the 20th century, they were still made of wood, only the frame was metal. Then metal ones arrived, replacing the wooden ones, which now belong to the government.
They belong to the government?
Motorboats and sailboats and the first trawler fishing boats. The kasatka type were manufactured in Arkhangelsk and Karelia. This is a barge, and before this used to be a pier. There was no bridge until the 90s, and all the boats were motorboats.
They all crossed over there.
So this barge is covered in sand and dirt. Nobody uses it anymore.
These were all the fishermen, right?
Fishing boats.
Fishing boats, which later...
They were no longer needed because factory ships appeared.
They were able to go far out into the ocean. They were all in Murmansk.
I've just been dropped off in the old city of Teriberka. As you can see, it's quite different. Now I'll take a walk around, but what remains here are mostly small wooden houses. This is the House of Culture. Let's see if someone can tell us a bit more about this little village and what life is like here.
We have some small museum rooms. For example, this room is about the Pomors and the Sami. Here you can see how the Pomors lived. And we also have the Sami, the Aboriginal people of the Kola Peninsula. They used to be called Laps. They lived in what used to be called Lapland, which is kind of like the Kola Peninsula. And recently they started being called Sami. They mainly lived in these kuvaska. These were dwellings designed for temporary settlement. And this is like an underground shelter where they spent the winter. All of this is typical of the Sami. They mainly devoted themselves to reindeer herding. The reindeer provided them with food, clothing, and transportation. They traveled by sleds. Everything is related to this. They also sewed hides.
Yes, they traded in hides, I understand.
Here we have a very old bag that was donated to the museum. It's made of reindeer and seal skin.
And was this perhaps used by a shaman?
They are percussion instruments. These objects are very similar to the ones shamans use. Nature made them this way. Here we have a reindeer.
Yes.
That's actually the tree's root. Do you see how it looks? It's the root of a tree, but look how much it resembles a reindeer.
Yeah, it looks a lot like one.
Well, and what did the Pomors use? A very curious fishing net like this one. This is for catching capelin. It's like the sprat, it's a very small fish. What was it used for? They used it as bait to fish for cod. Above all, the Pomors love cod. Cod is their favorite dish.
And here, how many more people lived during Soviet times than now?
At least about 5,000 people. Yes, definitely about 5,000 people. We had collective farms. My grandmother arrived in 1944 from Vologda. They were looking for people here to work on the collective farms.
In the kolkhozes?
Here in the kolkhozes, they were animal farms. Farms where they even raised American mink. And of course, they also fished.
Fishing was central. They canned it, right?
They didn't can it?
No.
Before they didn't can it, that came later when the factories opened. They used to sell frozen fish. I'll show you a cold storage unit like this one. This is the one we had here in the 30s. The fish was frozen in blocks. The ice was prepared exclusively for that.
And did they send it all over the USSR?
They sent it to nearby places.
How was your childhood?
I, for example, was born in the 60s, and there were no longer 5,000 people left between both towns. At first, there were hospitals, a fire station, and the heating company. They sold firewood to residents because people heated their homes with stoves. From my childhood, I remember being at the pier fishing with the boys. While our parents were at work, what did we do? We ran, grabbed rods like this one, and fished at the dock. We caught small cod. Мелкая. We caught flounder. We came back home beaming because even though there were fish shops, we had caught that ourselves, and that was wonderful.
It's tastier when it's made with love.
We used to go to the woods to pick berries, and our parents didn't worry about us. We used to go for walks with our bucket to collect berries.
Like that one, for example.
This is a basket. The bucket would be like this. Так.
Oh, okay.
First, we used to collect with this. You would make this movement and the berries would stay here. We call it Teriberka.
What did their diet consist of? Fish. Как я понял?
Fish, berries.
Fish and berries. And milk and meat.
Milk, yes, we had a dairy farm. We closed it last year. There were only 7 cows left. The farm used to be very prosperous. They had cows and a poultry farm. We had our own eggs and chickens. It was a big poultry farm. They raised pigs, and for a while they tried to start a collective rabbit farm. Everything you see was from here.
Very interesting. Now, of course, there are a lot of tourists, right? After the movie, Leviathan was released, right?
Leviathan, yes.
Leviathan. How did that influence television? Do you feel the difference before and after that?
Yes, of course. After the movie, it made sense that more tourists would come and that they would want to visit Teriberka, but yes, the influx was lower before.
Yes, yes.
After the movie, people started coming in droves.
Hotels were built.
Yes, hotels.
Bars, restaurants, resorts.
Yes, as you have seen, Teriberka has become a place full of hotels.
You could say that you are living a second life here now. Or third or fourth.
If Teriberka is like this now and back then it was different. Look at that halibut, it's the size of a person.
I just had halibut pie.
Look here, the year 1894.
I was saying that I was just eating halibut pie.
You just ate halibut pie at the cafe. They call it northern bacon.
It's not bad, but I'm used to other...
When it has less fat, then you have cod, flounder, they're different. We have different species like halibut. In the Norwegian Sea we have scomber, the mackerel which is fattier.
And before they were simply salted, nothing else was done to them, just salted. They were left to soak and the fish would absorb the salt and then it was simply eaten.
It was eaten salted, just as it was.
That's right. Come on, I'll show you what's left. Since you like pioneers, here's something from that era from our school. I'm not sure if you've been there, but we had one. I'm not sure if you've been there. We have pioneer items at the school. Yes.
What did the pioneers usually do in this village?
What did the pioneers do? I was a pioneer myself. We took care of the elderly people. We helped them go to the store. We chopped wood for them. The pioneers also did other things. For example, a collective farm sponsored us. We went there to milk cows. From a certain grade on, they would take us to do it. We also went to the poultry farm. We collected the eggs, cleaned the windows, that kind of thing. We prepared the hay for the cows.
And is all of this free? Free?
Yes.
But they gave you the eggs, the milk.
Yes, of course, they would treat us. When we were in school, they helped us. For example, the kolkhoz gave us manure for the school garden. as fertilizer, that kind of thing. My grandmother had 10 children. In 1957, Voroshilov gave her an award for having 10 children.
An award for having 10 children?
My mom was the third. When they came here, she was already a grandmother, and my father was from Orkandil.
Back then, they usually had more children than now, right?
Yes, of course, it was normal to have 6 or 7 children. Having 1 or 2 wasn't common?
Before it was rare, now it's the norm.
Yes,
How everything has changed.
that's right.
Mother Heroine, I didn't know they gave out that diploma.
It was awarded for having 5 children and then for having 10. She also had a medal, but it hasn't been preserved.
Interesting, Mother Heroine. She's definitely a hero. She has 10 kids.
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
The war hit Teriberka hard and the entire Murmansk region. It's the best remembered period in history here in the north and in the Kola region. During the hardest period, 200,000 people died. These are people who died, disappeared, or were fatally wounded. Not only military personnel, but also civilians.
Even the Sami from Teriberka went off to war.
There were reindeer transport battalions that went to the front with the Sami. They took the wounded out of there and brought in supplies, weapons, and ammunition.
Because reindeer are the quietest animals, they make no sound. Even with serious wounds, they die silently, only bellowing during mating season. That's why they were used so intensively during the Great Patriotic War. Hey, we've picked up some interesting words at the House of Culture, as usual. See, like I said, it's already getting dark. Days here are so short. Well, this is what the rest of old Teriberka looks like. Teriberka. And this here is the school, already abandoned as well. A typical school built in Soviet style had the gym and sports hall downstairs and classrooms upstairs. All the village children studied here. Although these houses here are already abandoned and people have moved to the new Teriberka, as they call it, you can still see that there are houses around here that are occupied and inhabited. Like this one. Another reason why tourists come to these latitudes, specifically to Teriberka, on the outskirts of Murmansk, is to see the Aurora Borealis, the northern lights. Right now we've stopped for a bit on the way back to Murmansk, and here, I don't think this camera will capture it, but I'll show you a photo with my phone. Right in front of me now I can see the first rays of the Aurora Borealis. This is a phenomenon that only occurs at the poles, although I'll be honest with you. See? It has a greenish-grey tone, and the phone and cameras capture it much better, much brighter. When you see it live, at least right now, it's not as bright as in the photos, but it's still beautiful. You can appreciate those greenish tones. A chilly good afternoon from the Murmansk railway station. Although I could just as well say good evening, almost, because the little daylight there is during the day is about to fade away. The sun is showing its last rays of the day, so to speak. I wanted to start the tour of this city here at the railway station, because of the role it played in the city's origins. The construction of the railway was essential for the development of this port city, because it allowed the transit of both goods and passengers. Due to the blockades of the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea by the Germans during World War I, Russia needed to open another port, an entry point for those goods, in order to survive and manage the war. It was then that the Tsars decided that Murmansk would fulfill that purpose, since its waters do not freeze due to an Atlantic Ocean current, unlike the port of Arkhangelsk. That is why the entire machinery of the empire was set in motion for its construction, and in about 2 years they built this railway line. They mainly used prisoners of war, Austro-Hungarians and Germans, estimated to be between 25,000 and 40,000, but also Chinese labor brought from Manchuria. According to what I've read, up to 70,000 people worked each month, who had practically no machinery and had to do everything by hand. In fact, the conditions during the construction of the railway were so harsh that some historians say that between 25,000 and 30,000 prisoners perished during its construction. Scurvy, typhus, tuberculosis, and the cold finished them off. Although the construction of the Murmansk railway did not finish in time to meet the expectations of the Tsars, later it played a fundamental role in the development of the city, as I said, but also during World War II, because it opened the Arctic route, so that the partners and allies of the Soviet Union could help in the war efforts against Nazi Germany. Look at what you can find on the platforms of the station. This huge steam locomotive with the red star, that is, from Soviet times, is placed here, in commemoration of the centenary of the opening of the train station, which was in 1916, a year before the Russian Revolution. These locomotives are enormous. They must be about 4 or 5 meters tall, and in length, well, another 20 or 30, I don't know, more or less, 15 or 20 meters. And take a look next to the passenger station, there's the freight one. All the wagons, some already loaded with what looks like coal, these here, others empty, and in the background, the port cranes, which load and unload all these materials and goods. This shows the importance, right, as I was saying, of this city, this port city. You have, without exaggerating, 10 or 12 tracks dedicated exclusively to freight transport and storage. There's even a branch of Nornickel, you can see it from here. I don't know if the camera can catch it, that almost fluorescent blue one in the background. Next to the port, which is the company that runs Norilsk, where 90% of Russia's nickel is extracted. Through this port, the processed nickel and other materials are probably shipped to the rest of the world. The port is huge. As far as I can see, from there, all of this, behind the buildings, and even further over there, you can see more cranes in the distance. I mean, just imagine. The next stop is the port, where you'll find this majestic nuclear icebreaker, the first in the world, Lenin. Today it's a museum you can visit, it's a museum ship. The thing is, here in Murmansk is the headquarters of Atomflot, the nuclear fleet of nuclear icebreakers, the largest in the world. Russia has 8 nuclear icebreakers and about 35 or 36 diesel ones, which play an essential role in the Northern Sea route. This icebreaker, specifically, was launched from the shipyards in 1950 and 1959 and was operational until 1989. As a curious fact, it is estimated that while it was in service, it traveled more than 3 times the distance between the Earth and the Moon. That's incredible. Here, next to the icebreaker, you can see more details about the current fleet of nuclear icebreakers that Russia has, which are 8, although they are building more. You have the ones from the 80s series, the 10,580 series, the Taimyr, the Vaigach, then from the 90s, the Yamal, and already in the 2000s, the 50 Years of Victory. This is the one Rama went to the North Pole on. And then the most advanced, the most modern ones, there are 4. The Arctica, the Ural, the Sibir, and the Yakutia. And they keep building them. This year, in 2026, another nuclear icebreaker is scheduled to be delivered. These icebreakers have both civilian and military purposes. Some of them are even loaded with missiles to defend positions. And that's because Murmansk, besides being home to the nuclear icebreakers and the Arctic nuclear fleet, also hosts the headquarters of the Northern Fleet. Although it's a closed city to the public, not far from Murmansk, just a few kilometers to the north, there's a place called Severomorsk. And that's where the headquarters of the Northern Fleet are located. You can find ships, nuclear submarines, even aircraft carriers there. Historically, the exploration and exploitation of the Northeast Passage was often unsuccessful due to the impenetrable ice barrier, and it wasn't until well into the Soviet era that a plan was put in place to take advantage of this route. Decades of investments in ports, rescue stations, and a fleet of nuclear icebreakers have managed to turn what was once an almost impassable passage into a shipping lane, an alternative to the traditional routes that cross the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal. The route, which connects the Bering Strait with the Barents Sea, is open most of the year, thanks to the Russian nuclear icebreakers, which ensure the safety and viability of transit, and it is 30 to 40% shorter than through the Suez Canal, reducing fuel consumption and emissions per trip. It is mainly used to transport energy resources, though containers with goods and machinery are also moved, and infrastructure investment is expected to continue in the coming years. Although it does not represent a large percentage of total global maritime traffic, less than 1%, its goal is to position itself as a strategic route for the transport of energy resources. Entering the Lenin icebreaker leaves no one indifferent. Walking along the gangway that leads from the port, the ship becomes a giant, forcing you to look up to take it all in. The high-strength steel of its hull rises like a wall floating between the mist and the black water of the port, and as we climb aboard, the design and finishes take us directly back 70 years. I'm already inside the Lenin icebreaker. The guide first warns us to be very careful not to get lost. There are more than 1,000 rooms, more than 1,000 cabins here, and the hallways come in all shapes and colors. Besides, there's no internet connection or phone signal, so it's better not to get lost. The first thing you see is a large meeting room, with a big table and many chairs, with Lenin presiding, and on both sides 2 small lounges, one with armchairs and a television, and the other with a grand piano. According to what the guide said, everything retains its 1959 aesthetic. And look at this! This is where they used to leave the mail.
The space we're in is the repair control post. If you climb up onto the step and look over, you'll see the place where the nuclear reactor used to be.
From this room you can see, well, you could see the nuclear reactors. The thing is, well, they've already been removed, obviously for safety reasons. This is how the room would look with operators working. This was the first reactor it had, and later this one. This is huge. As you can see, it's full of cabins. This is what one of the cabins would look like. With its bidet, its sofa, its wardrobe, and the bunk beds. And a bottle of vodka. Well, I guess it's for water too. This here was the icebreaker's canteen, as you can see, with chairs bolted to the floor. A rather striking decoration, isn't it? The tables, I imagine, are the same color as at the inauguration. The system was very interesting. It was a buffet. It was served buffet style. The food trays arrived by elevator from the kitchen. And then this would open, these little doors, and here the crew would serve themselves whatever they wanted. This is the engine room that powered the nuclear reactor. It's huge. Amazing. It's hard to believe this is a ship for civilian use. That's how it's described, and that's why, according to the guide, women could work here. With its technology, it's hard to believe it's civilian. Here you can see an example of a turbine. The guide has just played a sound so we can get an idea of what it sounded like back then. He says that this was of course the noisiest and hottest room on the whole ship. Here's an example of the first major journeys that Lenin made. From Murmansk, along the entire Russian Arctic coast, all the way to the Sea of Japan. So these stairs are pretty steep. I've taken a look at the control room. All of this is a computer from the 1960s, according to what the guide said. Before, it was analog. And when they installed it, when they switched from one nuclear reactor to 2, they changed from analog to electronic. It's impressive. In this engine room, the guide says that 5 people used to work here, out of the total 230 to 236 people who could work on the Icebreaker. This here is the operating room, where the medical team was. It even has a dentist for teeth cleaning and tooth extractions. And an interesting fact is that they did tests on the crew's bodies to see how the nuclear reactor affected, the human body. And the studies said that it didn't affect them in any negative way. And the radiation levels were even lower than those found in nature. Now we've reached the officers' cabins. As you can see, they were a bit more luxurious than the rest of the crews, logically. But something interesting that he told us in the canteen, which I had forgotten to mention, is that the food was the same for the crew members, the captains, and the officers. However, the rooms were not. Here they are. And this one here was the captain's lounge, next to his cabin. Impressive. Not bad at all. This is where the invited VIPs stayed. For example, since it was a civilian vessel, this icebreaker served as a propaganda tool to showcase to the world the wonders of Soviet nuclear energy. And among the most internationally renowned guests, Fidel Castro stayed here in the 1960s, and Richard Nixon before he became President of the United States. Right above the captain's cabins is the command and communications room. The command post is huge, with all kinds of objects. It's like being teleported back to those times. Look, I guess this must be... Look, reverse, forward. The guide mentioned that there were different techniques to break the ice. And if they couldn't do it at normal speed, they would go in reverse. They went at full power. If they still couldn't, they had to find another way. Looks like the radar. And here, in the center of the control room, the helm. And from the helm, that's how the tour of the nuclear icebreaker Lenin ends. What was the most well-known or the most difficult mission for the Lenin ship?
The Lenin icebreaker didn't manage to reach the North Pole. The Arctica did. By the late 70s, actually, all of Lenin's missions were a feat. Well, it was the first of its kind, but I can tell you an interesting one. It was the icebreaker that spent the most time without docking, 390 days.
390 days. And how did they survive?
The crew changed during this time, rotating as expected. But that doesn't change the fact that the ship spent 390 days without touching port, a record.
Did any woman give birth on board?
No, no one was born or died on board.
All right, thank you.
Спасибо.
I have to say that the center of Murmansk looks a bit like the center of Norilsk. For example, you see, this building reminds me of Stalinist architecture, and those ones back there too, the residential ones. I don't know what this is, it must be some kind of municipal building. This one has been renovated somewhat, but still keeps the style. I mention this not just for the building style, but also for the colors. This steel blue turquoise, and then the orange and yellow, the mix. It reminds me of what I saw in Norilsk. Also, the layout of the buildings is similar to the main Lenin street that runs through the whole center, full of buildings with this kind of architecture, with columns. And one thing that just had to be here. I can barely even talk. I mean, one thing that just had to be here. my face is frozen. It's a culinary review of the food here, so let's get to it. Since it's the holidays here in Russia, I've decided to come to a high-end, fancy restaurant to try some delicacies. The first thing is a local house craft beer. So, as always, cheers to you. Also, on an empty stomach, I hope it doesn't affect me too much. It's light, 4.5%, so, well, it's fine. Well, here you have the amazing feast I'm about to enjoy. This here is Olivier's salad. Well, a Russian salad, as we know it. What makes it special is that it has these little northern shrimp. And the crown jewel, what really shows that this is a true feast. It's the king crab, or Kamchatka crab, which even though it's called that, is actually native. From the Bering Sea, they brought it here in the 60s. It's even sometimes nicknamed, you might find it out there, as Stalin's red crab. Here you have it. It's a gigantic crab, huge. The distance between its legs from end to end can reach up to 1.8 meters. Just imagine, it's crazy. It's practically as tall as I am. It's highly valued here in Russia because its legs have a lot of meat, since they're so big. Of course, you have to pay for it here. 100 grams of crab, shell included, uncleaned, costs 10 euros. In this case, they serve it to you with a couple of pieces of lemon, as you can see. And this here is melted butter. So that's enough talk, and here's to you. To your health. I'm going to try it like this. Straight, boiled, no sauce. Out of this world. Delicious. You can see how much meat it has. Let's see, with the butter. I'm more into mixing it with lemon. But the butter gives it a Russian-style touch. Awesome. Spectacular. Delicious. If you come here, I recommend you try it. Look at these huge pieces. I'm going to try the salad now, just a bit, although, well, there's not much mystery to it. Potato, some vegetables, in this case it has peas, and what I mentioned before about the shrimp and an egg, for you. Anyway, it's really good too. A deli-style Russian salad, perfect to go with beer. And ladies and gentlemen, to finish this tribute, I ordered a plate of grilled Arctic reindeer meat. Here it is, with a pine nut and cheese sauce, or so I've been told, and some small berries. There are plenty of them here, say no more, with another beer, of course. Cheers. Let's dig into the reindeer. Insane, spectacular. I had tried reindeer tartare before, in Norilsk, if I'm not mistaken. But this, grilled over the coals, is truly delicious. This is what they've eaten and lived on for thousands of years. The indigenous peoples of these regions, now I understand why. Also, look at how they serve it perfectly cooked. I'd say a bit more cooked, but it still melts in your mouth. The bill for the feast has arrived, 8,020 rubles, which is about 85 euros at the current exchange rate. And as a digestif to finish, a stoika, which is like a diluted drink with flavor, that is, a flavored liqueur, in this case, currant, very typical around here, also in the north. At least I keep seeing it everywhere. Everyone drinks it. So I'm going to do the same, to your health. It's smooth. They usually have about 20% alcohol, more or less. Obviously, the most expensive thing on the bill was the crab. 55, 56 euros for half a kilo of crab. After that big drink and being sheltered there, anyone would warm up. But look at what I just saw here outside the restaurant. Wooden houses. I imagine these must have been some of the first buildings in the city of Murmansk when it was founded by the Romans. If not, they sure look like them. It looks like it used to be an old factory or workshop. Take a look at this. It really caught my attention. These trees are completely frozen, like all of them, but the fruits are still here. They're like some kind of red berries, and some black ones too. Amazing. And they're all over the city. Who would have thought you could find this kind of fruit at these temperatures? Well, yes, there are, and plenty of them. Back in the city, now at night, I came to see the memorial to the sailors who died in peacetime, which is on a hill. And right behind me, I have specifically the sailors who participated in submarine missions. That's why the memorial looks like this. It looks like the top part of a submarine, right? What you would see when it comes to the surface. Perhaps the most well-known tragedy of all in recent times, especially in modern Russia, although there have been many, and there's a long list of those who died, was the Kursk submarine disaster, which I'm sure many of you remember. On August 12, 2,118 people died in a submarine that sank in the Barents Sea. Here you have the Kursk, the K-141 Kursk, August 12, 2,118 people, but there are others here as well. Another 9 people. In 2003 and 89, 42 people, and if we go further back, we have 122 people in 61, 98 people in 1968. You can see the photos on some panels here to the side of the sailors, the whole crew, of several of the accidents. And here in the middle of the memorial, which is this hill, as I said, a large building that is basically a lighthouse. It basically looks like a lighthouse. A few minutes walk from the memorial where I just was, here following the hill, we find another one dedicated to the inhabitants of Murmansk during the war period, the Great Patriotic War, World War II. Here you have the different medals awarded to the city, along with the city's coat of arms. Perhaps the most important of them is the star, the Hero City decoration. There are 12 of them, plus the Brest fortress throughout the former Soviet Union. The cities that have this award, dedicated to the immortal feats of the inhabitants of Murmansk during the years of the Great Patriotic War. Glory forever. And here you can read on this plaque that the defense of the city lasted for 1,221 days, from 1941 to 1944. Murmansk endured and prevailed. Being the most important Arctic port of the Soviet Union, it was a highly coveted and strategic target for the Germans. Here I can read that the city was bombed several times. And the worst day was June 18, 1942. When more than 12,000 bombs were dropped and 600 houses burned. It's interesting because they give some details here. It says the workers had 800 grams of bread ration per day. For those who served, it was 600 grams. For the children, 400 grams. Workers were given 750 grams of sugar per month. And for those who were on duty, 600 grams. For the children, 500 grams. Another feat attributed to the people of Murmansk is that during those years, Murmansk's fishermen caught more than 85,000 tons of fish. It also mentions, quite interestingly, that in January of 1942, the port of Murmansk began receiving aid from Allied convoys. Of course, in these cold conditions, when winter arrived, I can't even imagine what those moments of war were like. Finally, to finish this tour of Murmansk, I have come to one of the highest points in the city, from where you can see a great panoramic view. From where he looks impassively at Alyosha, which is Alejo, a diminutive of the name Alejo Alexei. A soldier from World War II with his rifle on his shoulder, looking towards the front as if he were guarding the city, taking care of it. The monument is almost 40 meters high, if I'm not mistaken, and it's spectacular. Also, with this mist rising from the river now, it gives it a very cinematic touch. At the foot of the pedestal, you have the eternal flame and a plaque that honors the unknown Soviet soldiers who defended the Arctic. Well, from here, with Alyosha behind me, I say goodbye to this video. I don't even know what my face looks like anymore. It's freezing, probably down to minus 25 or even minus 30 degrees. My phone isn't even working, so I can't show you how cold it is, but it's really, really cold, as you can see from everything around me. I hope you enjoyed the video, this walk through the largest city in the Arctic, and as I always say, see you next time. Bye. The border guards here, if you get close to the border, they'll shoot.
Основной предмет на русском.
A little bit of wind, but it's perfect. The sun has come out. We're going to make this first trip in an Antonov 24. Here it is.
Живет здесь? Не знаете. Хорошо.